Greetings. This is the one you've known as Jesus the Christ. There's something real called faith that isn't blind. You know this, don't you? You know what I mean by faith, but it's hard to put into words, isn't it? That's because faith is not of this realm, but of the subtle realm, which is very real, but not a place the mind can go. To experience the subtle realm, you have to leave the mind behind. You have to go beyond the mind to a more mysterious land, the land of the spiritual heart. You also know what I mean by heart with a capital H. I like to use the term spiritual heart or capitalized heart to differentiate it from the emotional side of life, which heart often refers to. The spiritual heart has nothing to do with emotions, unless you consider joy and love to be emotions. We could call these higher emotions, since they're not generated by the ego, but by the divine self. I prefer to refer to the feelings that the ego generates as emotions, and put love, joy, peace, and gratitude in another category, which I call qualities of your true nature. The spiritual heart is the domain of these qualities. It is the outpost within every human being that receives guidance and knowings or intuitions from those guiding you in non-physical realms. The spiritual heart, like the physical heart, is located in the chest, which is why it's been termed the heart. This area of the body is where the human being connects with the divine and the non-physical beings who help carry out each person's divine plan, their soul's plan. The spiritual heart delivers the nudges, intuitions, inspiration, ahas, and light bulb moments that everyone experiences, which are meant to guide your life and do guide your life to one extent or another. You naturally respond to these nudges and knowings, often without realizing it. Everyone is guided this way, but when you become more aware of this guidance system, the nudges and intuitions become more obvious and easier to trust and follow. You get better at being guided by them. When that happens, your life becomes easier. What do I mean by nudges? These are the subtle taps on the shoulder, the drives, the urges, the pushes, the sudden inspiration, and the joy and excitement that move you to act and speak. You all know what these nudges feel like, and following them feels good. Something piques your interest that feels exciting, and you do it without a lot of questioning or hesitation. These nudges are how your spiritual guidance speaks to you through the spiritual heart, in addition to intuitions, which feel more like knowings or downloads of information. Without such a guidance system, you would be left with the default to guide you, the voice of the ego and your conditioning. This voice has limited value. It knows nothing of your spiritual plan or what will make you happy on the deepest level. The voice in your head isn't interested in these things, but only in getting what your ego wants. That leaves out a lot of what's meaningful and fulfilling in life. Faith is similar to the knowings and intuitions that come from the heart, and like the intuition, faith develops over your many incarnations. It's lacking in the youngest of souls, whose primary experience is fear. Faith develops as your connection with the divine develops. Over your many incarnations, you become closer to God. You come to know and experience God, and you come to love and trust God, unless that trust has been damaged, which does happen. You can't explain it, but you know that God exists and represents everything that is good within you and within life. This deep knowing and sensing that God exists and that God is good is faith. Faith is not a belief in something, which is what distinguishes it from blind faith. Faith is not based on ideas, but on a personal inner knowing and experience of God. With faith, you feel a connection with God, and you feel God. You may also have some beliefs about God that bolster your faith, but faith is primarily a knowing that God exists and that you are a child of a loving God. Faith could also be described as faith in the power of love and goodness. I came to teach love because love is the essence of life. I came to increase your faith in love and increase your faith in God, to point you to what is true and meaningful. Faith is not faith in a specific future outcome, as this word is so often used. I have faith that he'll recover. That's more like hope or faith in a belief that something will happen. While hope or a positive belief about the future is better than a negative belief about the future, that isn't faith, but more like blind faith, faith in something you don't know to be true. The faith I'm talking about is faith in something you know to be true because you've had lifetimes of experience that have resulted in knowing on a deep level that God exists and that you're connected to God and loved by God. This knowing is very different than knowing something with your mind, because faith is based on experiences and on an experience of God's presence in your life. Based on many lifetimes of experiences, you know that life is good, divinely orchestrated, and unfolding as it needs to, and that you have what you need within yourself to cope with whatever life brings you. Faith is about your personal relationship with God. Do you experience God's presence, for instance, in a church or other sacred or natural setting? Do you love God? You either do or you don't. If you don't, what beliefs keep you from trusting and loving God? Your relationship with God might have been damaged by beliefs that made you afraid of God or caused you to conclude that God is a silly, childish notion. Either way, both faith and a lack of faith in God due to disillusionment with religion can lead to an estrangement from your own true nature, which is divine. You are a spark of God temporarily housed in a body, and deep inside you, you know your origins. This knowing is faith. Religion can damage someone's faith, someone's relationship with God, either by instilling fear and limiting your relationship with God, or by causing someone to throw the baby out with the bathwater, throw what is true and good about religion out with what is false. Regardless of religion's flaws, many have a deep experience of God within a religious context, such as a church. For many, their religion enhances their relationship with God. Their loyalty toward their religion comes from a real experience of God that they have when attending church or in quiet moments alone. In this way, religion serves. No matter what you believe, or even if you believe nothing about God, I am present whenever you call upon me, and wherever two or more are gathered in my name. A sincere desire to experience me and to experience God in church or in quiet moments is always met with my presence. People feel my presence, and this bolsters their faith. Sometimes they believe that their religion is what allows them to have an experience of me or of God, when all that's required is a pure intention to connect with me, anywhere. To connect with me No belief is necessary, only a sincere desire to connect with me and to follow my teachings of love and peace. Some of those with the greatest faith have the fewest religious beliefs and never attend church. If going to church enhances your relationship with me and with God and makes you a more loving and peaceful person, that's wonderful. If it doesn't, it's best to reevaluate your religious beliefs. Unfortunately, because many do have a meaningful connection to me and to God in church, they might assume that everything the church teaches is true. They reason, if going to church feels this good, then what the church teaches must be true. When you stand back and examine this statement, you can see that this isn't logical, but this isn't always obvious. Many remain in a church that is repressive, not only because they're afraid to leave, but also because they have a fulfilling experience of God when they're in church. Conflating these two things is confusing to many. The dogma is oppressive, but the experience is uplifting. However, a church and the beliefs that go with belonging to a church aren't what give you an experience of God. You give yourself an experience of God by being open to experiencing that, and that can happen anywhere and any time. It's important to realize this for both religious and non-religious people. If you aren't religious, that doesn't mean you can't and won't connect meaningfully with God. Spirituality has nothing to do with religion or religion's idea of God. Spirituality is a feature of being human. Human beings are naturally spiritual because you're made from God by God, and you're here to discover this or rediscover this. When you're newly on the spiritual path, you think you're a person with problems. Then, as you progress on the path, you discover that you're a spiritual being having lessons in the school of life. Who you know yourself to be evolves. You realize that you aren't the ego, but the divine self dressed up as a person with an ego. Spirituality is about realizing this and then learning to live as your divine self, as God intended and as I did when I was alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your openness. I am with you always.